Hello, and welcome to Podcast for English. My name is Linda. I'm really happy you're here today. This channel is for people who want to learn English in a simple and natural way. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to speak fast. You don't need to understand every word. You only need to listen. You can listen while you rest. You can listen while you work. You can listen while you live your daily life. Take a deep breath, relax your body, clear your mind. Now, let's begin today's English lesson together. In today's podcast, we are talking about a habit that many English learners have. A habit that feels normal, a habit that feels helpful, but a habit that often slows learning. Today's topic is this: stop translating in your head when learning English. Many learners listen to English, then translate. They hear a sentence, they change it into their first language. Then they understand. This feels safe. This feels correct. But over time, this habit creates problems. It makes listening slow. It makes speaking difficult. It makes English feel heavy. If you translate in your head, you are not alone. Almost everyone does this at the beginning. It is natural. But if translation stays too long, English cannot flow. This episode is not about forcing yourself. It is not about stopping translation overnight. It is about understanding why translation happens, how it affects learning, and how to gently move away from it. You do not need to erase your first language. You only need to change how English enters your mind. In this podcast, we will talk about why the brain translates, why translation blocks fluency, and how understanding can happen without translation. Do not judge yourself. This habit is not a mistake, it is a stage. And like all stages, it can change slowly, naturally, without pressure. Let us start by understanding why your brain translates in the first place. Your brain translates automatically for a reason. It is not a bad habit, it is a survival skill. When you learn a new language, your brain looks for something familiar. Your first language is familiar. It is safe. It is fast. It is already there. So when you hear English, your brain connects it to what it already knows. It translates. This happens without effort. You do not choose it. The brain does it to understand quickly. At the beginning, this translation is helpful. It gives meaning. It gives clarity. It reduces confusion. Without translation, everything would feel lost. So, translation is a bridge, a temporary bridge. The problem appears when the bridge never disappears. When translation becomes the main road. Your brain keeps using it because it works. But it is slow. Every time you translate, you add one more step. Hear English, change language, understand meaning. This extra step takes time, and time breaks flow. The brain likes the fastest path. If translation is always used, the brain never learns a direct path. It never learns English to meaning. only English to first language to meaning. This is why translation feels automatic. The brain repeats what it has practiced, not what is best. Another reason translation feels automatic is fear. When you do not fully trust your English, you translate to check. You want certainty. You want to be sure you understand. Translation gives that feeling. But certainty comes at a cost. It slows listening. It blocks speaking. The brain also translates because of habit. You learned English through words lists, through grammar rules, through explanations. These methods train translation. They do not train direct understanding. So the brain does what it was trained to do. Translate. None of this means you are doing it wrong. It means your brain is following instructions. Good instructions for beginners, but not for fluency. To stop translating, you do not fight the brain. You retrain it. You give it new experiences. You show it that English can connect directly to meaning. This takes time, but it is possible. And it starts with understanding that translation is not your enemy. It is a stage you are now ready to move beyond. Translating slows everything down, not a little, a lot. When you translate, your brain works in steps. First, you hear English. Then you change it into your first language. Then you understand the meaning. These steps happen very fast, but they still take time. Listening does not wait. English keeps moving. While you are translating the first part, the speaker has already moved on. This is why listening feels hard. You are always behind. Speaking becomes even harder. When you want to speak, you start with an idea in your first language. Then you translate, then you check grammar, then you check words, then you check pronunciation. By the time you are ready, the moment is gone. This creates frustration. You know what you want to say, but you cannot say it fast enough. Translation also increases pressure. You feel you must be correct. You feel you must find the perfect word. This pressure tightens the mind. A tight mind cannot speak freely. Another problem with translation is overload. The brain is doing too much, listening, translating, understanding, or thinking. Translating, speaking, too many tasks at the same time. This overload causes fatigue. Fatigue makes learning unpleasant. When learning feels heavy, you avoid it. Translation also prevents intuition. Intuition is knowing without thinking. But when you translate, you always think. You never allow English to feel natural. The brain never builds direct connections. Meaning stays locked behind translation. This is why even advanced learners sometimes struggle. They know many words. They know many rules. But speaking still feels slow. Because translation is still in the middle. Understanding English directly feels faster. It feels lighter. It feels more natural. But the brain will not choose the direct path until it is trained. Translation was useful. but now it is limiting. To move forward, you do not stop translating by force. You reduce it by changing input, by slowing down, by repeating, by focusing on meaning, not words. This is how listening and speaking begin to speed up. Not suddenly, but gradually. As translation slowly steps aside, translating creates tension, even when you do not notice it. Every time you translate, you pause inside your mind. You stop the flow, you wait. This waiting creates tension. Fluency needs movement. It needs continuity. Translation interrupts this. When you translate, you feel pressure to be correct. You want the right word. You want the right structure. This desire creates stress. Stress tightens the body. Shoulders tighten. Breathing changes. The mind narrows. A narrow mind cannot flow. Fluency is flow. Translation also creates fear. You are afraid the translation is wrong. You check again. You doubt yourself. Doubt slows response. Slow response breaks conversation. Another problem is attention. When you translate, your attention moves inward. You focus on words. You focus on rules. You focus on yourself. But communication is outward. It focuses on meaning. It focuses on the other person. It focuses on the situation. Translation pulls you away from communication. This makes speaking feel unnatural. Translation also creates mental noise. Two languages compete for attention. The brain switches back and forth. Switching costs energy. Energy loss creates fatigue. Fatigue reduces confidence. Low confidence blocks fluency. Fluency does not come from control. It comes from trust. Trusting that words will appear. Trusting that meaning is enough. Translation does not trust. It checks. It controls. It doubts. This is why even simple sentences feel hard. You know them, but you cannot release them. To become fluent, tension must reduce, and tension reduces when translation reduces. Not all at once, but little by little. When the mind relaxes, language flows. When language flows, fluency appears. Translation is not evil, but it is heavy, and fluency needs lightness. This is why translation creates tension and blocks fluency. And this is why letting go is part of learning. The brain can be trained. It learns from experience, not from instructions. To understand English without translating, the brain needs a new habit, a direct habit. English to meaning, not English to your first language to meaning. This training does not start with speaking. It starts with listening. Listening without pressure. Listening without checking every word. You allow English to pass through your mind. You focus on the general idea, not the details. This is important. Meaning comes before words. When you stop chasing words, the brain starts chasing sense. Sense is easier to catch. Another way to train the brain is repetition. You listen to the same content many times. The first time, you may translate. The second time, you translate less. The third time, you recognize patterns. Patterns create shortcuts. Shortcuts reduce translation. Repetition is how the brain builds direct connections. Another key is slow input. Fast English forces translation. Slow English allows understanding. When speech is slow, the brain has time to connect sound to meaning. No rush, no panic. This calm is essential. Visual context also helps. When you see something while hearing English, meaning becomes clear without translation. Images, situations, actions. These connect directly to understanding. Your first language is not needed. Another important step is acceptance. You accept partial understanding. You do not need to understand everything. Understanding enough is enough. When you accept this, the brain relaxes. Relaxed brains learn faster. You also train the brain by not translating back. When a thought appears in your first language, you do not fight it. You let it pass. Then you return to listening. No correction, no judgment. Over time, the brain notices that translation is not required. It chooses the faster path, direct understanding. This change is gradual. You may not notice it daily, but one day you realize something. You understand English, and you did not translate. That moment is the result of training. Gentle training. Daily training. Without force. This is how the brain learns to understand English without translating. Slow listening is powerful, not because it is easy, but because it gives the brain time. When English is fast, the brain panics. It tries to catch every word. When it cannot, it translates. Translation feels like help, but it slows everything down. Slow listening changes this. When speech is slow, the brain does not rush. It does not panic. It stays calm. A calm brain connects sound to meaning. It does not need translation. Slow listening also allows prediction. You hear the beginning of a sentence. You guess the meaning. Then you hear the rest. This guessing trains intuition. Intuition is understanding without thinking. Repetition strengthens this process. When you hear the same message again, the brain remembers the path. It remembers how meaning appeared. The second time, translation is weaker. The third time, translation almost disappears. Repetition builds familiarity. Familiarity creates confidence. Confidence removes the need to check. Checking is translation. Slow listening plus repetition creates a safe environment. No pressure, no rush, no fear. In this environment, the brain chooses the fastest route. English to meaning, not English to another language to meaning. Another reason slow listening works is attention. You focus on the whole message, not individual words. Words become clearer inside context. Context carries meaning. Meaning does not need translation. Repetition also helps memory. When something repeats, the brain stops treating it as new. New information triggers translation. Familiar information does not. This is important. The brain translates because it feels unsure. Repetition removes uncertainty. Uncertainty disappears. Translation fades. Slow listening and repetition are not boring. They are training. Training the brain to trust English. Training the brain to let meaning arrive. You do not need many materials. You need one simple audio, one clear voice, one message, again and again. This is how translation slowly steps away, not by force, but by comfort. And comfort is the key to real understanding. Partial understanding is enough. This sentence is very important. Many learners believe, if I do not understand everything, I am failing. This belief creates pressure. Pressure pushes the brain to translate, to check, to confirm, to be sure. But language does not work this way. In real life, you never understand 100%. Not even in your first language. You understand the main idea. You understand the intention. That is enough to respond. When you accept partial understanding, the brain relaxes. A relaxed brain does not rush. It listens. Listening without panic is powerful. When you stop checking every word, attention changes. You stop zooming in, you zoom out. You look at the whole message, the situation, the tone, the emotion. These elements carry meaning. Meaning does not live only in words. It lives in context. When context is clear, words become less important. This reduces translation. Another reason accepting partial understanding helps is speed. When you check every word, you fall behind. When you let words pass, you stay with the speaker. Staying with the speaker is more important than understanding every detail. You can always fill details later. Understanding the flow comes first. Another key point is trust. You must trust that the brain will catch meaning. The brain is good at this, but only when you allow it. If you interrupt with checking, you block this ability. Accepting partial understanding is not giving up. It is choosing the right goal. The goal is not accuracy. The goal is connection. Connection creates learning. When you stay connected, the brain learns patterns. Patterns create understanding. Checking words breaks patterns. Letting words pass builds them. Another gentle practice is ignoring unknown words. You hear them. You do not stop. You do not translate. You keep listening. Often, meaning becomes clear later. If not, it is okay. Not every word matters. This acceptance reduces anxiety. Reduced anxiety reduces translation. Over time, you notice something. You understand more with less effort. Not because you learned more words, but because you stopped blocking understanding. Partial understanding is not a weakness. It is a skill that leads to fluency. And fluency does not come from checking everything. It comes from moving forward with confidence. Translation does not disappear suddenly. It fades slowly, quietly. At first, you still translate, but not every word, only some. Then you notice moments when meaning appears before translation. You hear English and you understand. Without effort, without switching languages. These moments are important. They show the brain is changing. The brain is learning a new path, a shorter path, English to meaning. When this path is used more often, translation feels unnecessary. Not forbidden, just unnecessary. The brain always chooses the easiest route. When direct understanding feels easier than translating, the brain switches. This switch is natural. It cannot be forced. The more relaxed your listening becomes, the faster this happens. Relaxation creates trust. Trust lets translation step back. Another sign that translation is fading is speed. English feels slower, not because speakers slow down, but because your brain is faster. You no longer wait for translation, you stay with the message. Another sign is speaking. Words come out without planning, not perfect, but real. This is important. Real speech comes from direct understanding, not from translation. At this stage, mistakes still happen. This is normal. But mistakes no longer stop you. You continue. Continuation is fluency. Translation often returns when you are tired. This is okay. You do not fight it. You rest. Then you continue. Over time, translation appears less. Direct understanding appears more. English stops feeling like a foreign object. It feels familiar. It feels closer. It feels usable. This change does not feel dramatic. It feels normal. And normal is the goal. When English becomes normal, you do not think about language. You think about meaning. You think about people. You think about life. Translation did its job. Now it can rest. And when it rests, English becomes free. Free to move. Free to flow. Free to live inside you naturally. You've reached the end of today's episode. Before you leave, I want you to remember one simple thing. You did something good for yourself today. You listened. You stayed. You didn't give up. And that matters. Learning English is not about being fast. It is not about being perfect. It is about showing up again and again. Some days will feel easy. Some days will feel hard. Both are normal. Progress does not always feel exciting. Sometimes it feels quiet. Sometimes you don't notice it at all. But learning is still happening. Every minute you listen, your ears are learning new sounds. Your mind is learning new patterns. Your confidence is growing, even if you cannot see it yet. You don't need to push yourself. You don't need to compare yourself to others. You are on your own path, and your pace is enough. Let English be part of your daily life. Listen while you rest. Listen while you work. Listen while you live your normal day. If this episode helped you feel calmer, more focused, or more motivated, then your time here was well spent. Come back when you can. Come back when you need a quiet space to learn. My name is Linda, and this is Podcast for English. Thank you for learning with me. Until next time, keep going and never give up. Believe in yourself because you are stronger than you think.